My parents gave my sister $100,000 for her wedding and told me, "You don't deserve any help." So I cut ties and focused on building my own life. 3 years later, my sister drove past my $2 million home and called my mom sobbing. Why does she have that? You know that feeling when you're soaring, when life is finally going exactly how you dreamed. That was me. But then my parents, the people who were supposed to love me unconditionally, looked me straight in the eye and told me I wasn't worthy of their support. They called me a disappointment. And that crushing moment, that stark betrayal, completely shattered my world. My name is Sarah, and for as long as I can remember, I lived in the shadow of my older sister, Vanessa. We grew up in Boston, a picture-perfect family on the surface. My dad was a respected surgeon, my mom a university professor. We had the beautiful colonial house, the annual vacations, the big family holidays. But beneath that polished facade, there was an unspoken rule. Vanessa was the golden child, and I was just me. Vanessa, 3 years my senior, was everything my parents valued. Academically brilliant, socially graceful, and always eager to follow the path they meticulously laid out. She even looked like Mom, with the same honey blonde hair and blue eyes, while I took after Dad with darker features. But the differences ran so much deeper than just appearances. The favoritism started early. When it was time for high school, Vanessa got enrolled in Phillips Academy, an elite private school costing a fortune. My parents spared no expense, convinced it would secure her future. 2 years later, when it was my turn, suddenly tuition had become too expensive. I was sent to the local public school. "We need to be practical about finances," Mom explained. "Besides, you've always been more independent than your sister." Independence, I quickly learned, wasn't a personality trait, it was a necessity. While Vanessa received constant guidance and support, I was left to figure things out on my own. Then came our 16th birthdays. Vanessa was surprised with a brand new Honda Civic, complete with a giant red bow. My parents captured every moment, celebrating her responsibility. When my 16th birthday rolled around, nothing. They suggested I get a part-time job if I wanted a car. So I spent weekends and summers slinging coffee, eventually scraping enough together for a 10-year-old Toyota with dodgy brakes and no AC. "This will teach you the value of hard work," Dad declared. As if his earlier neglect had been a grand lesson all along. The pattern just kept repeating. Vanessa got a graduation trip to Europe. I was told college was expensive enough. She went to Northwestern, all expenses paid, with a comfortable apartment and a generous allowance. But for my college applications, the conversation dramatically shifted. "We've already spent so much on education," my mother said. "Student loans will teach you fiscal responsibility. Everyone has debt these days." I managed a partial scholarship to Boston University, but still took out substantial loans, working 20 hours a week at the campus bookstore just to get by. Against their advice, I chose to study marketing. They had wanted law or medicine, something more prestigious. "Marketing is for people who couldn't get into better programs," my father once sneered across a holiday dinner table, not even bothering to lower his voice. It stung every single time. But despite the constant comparisons, the unspoken disapproval, I excelled. I made the dean's list every semester, secured competitive internships, and most importantly, I found John. John was studying computer engineering, working his way through school just like me. His parents, both teachers, had instilled in him the same fierce self-reliance. We connected instantly. We studied late, shared cheap meals, and dreamed of building something meaningful together. We moved in together after graduation, worked our butts off, and slowly, painstakingly, paid down our student loans. While Vanessa moved back home for a year, enjoying free housing while job hunting at her leisure, John and I built our lives from the ground up. 3 years after graduation, John proposed on a hike in the White Mountains. No elaborate setup, no expensive ring. Just a simple, genuine moment between two people who respected and loved each other deeply. The ring was his grandmother's, a modest gold band with a small diamond, more precious to me than any extravagant jewel. "We don't need anything fancy," I told him, as we started planning our wedding. "Just something small, meaningful, with the people who truly care about us. We budgeted $10,000, meticulously saved. A park ceremony, a reception at our favorite neighborhood restaurant. No designer dresses, no elaborate florals. Just us. Then Vanessa announced her engagement to Gregory. He was the son of one of my father's partners, from the right background, with the right pedigree, though he'd never worked a day in his life. My parents were ecstatic. They threw an impromptu celebration, catered from an expensive restaurant, champagne flowing, inviting close family friends. My invitation came via text, almost an afterthought. Your sister is engaged. Dinner at 7. Try to be on time. John and I arrived to find the house buzzing. Vanessa, beaming, showed off an enormous diamond ring. Gregory charmed everyone with tales of his proposal in the Maldives. My mother fluttered around them like a delighted butterfly. And then, Dad raised his glass. We're so thrilled to welcome Gregory to the family. Which is why your mother and I have decided to give Vanessa and Gregory $100,000 toward their wedding expenses. Gasps of approval, Vanessa's squeals of delight. I felt John tense beside me, but I squeezed his hand. I was genuinely happy for her, truly, but the contrast to our own modest plans was jarring. Later, Vanessa pulled me aside, gushing about her Pinterest board. Destination wedding in Napa Valley, 200 guests minimum, designer gown, live band. Oh, and you'll be one of my bridesmaids, of course. Not maid of honor, though, that's Olivia. Olivia, her college roommate of less than 5 years. I smiled, nodded, pushing down the sting. That sounds beautiful, Vanessa. John and I are planning something small, but we're really excited too. Her enthusiasm dimmed. Oh? When are you thinking? 6 months, Riverside Park. Just close friends and family. She looked genuinely confused. 6 months? So soon. And outdoors? What if it rains? We want to keep it intimate and meaningful, I explained, and we're working with what we can afford. She glanced toward our parents. Well, I'm sure Mom and Dad will help you too, she said, though her tone suggested she wasn't so sure herself. But that planted a seed of hope. Maybe, just maybe, they'd offer some assistance. Not $100,000, but something, anything, to show they valued my happiness equally. With that sliver of hope, John and I decided to talk to them. The next weekend, we went over for dinner. The atmosphere was different, quiet, no special meal. They deliberately avoided the subject through most of the meal. Finally, as my mother served coffee, I decided to just say it. So, John and I have been planning our wedding, I began. Nothing elaborate, just a small ceremony. We've been saving, but it's still going to be tight with our student loans and rent. My parents exchanged a look I couldn't decipher. My father cleared his throat. And what exactly are you expecting from us? His tone immediately put me on the defensive. We're not expecting anything, John interjected politely. But Sarah thought it would be nice to discuss if you might want to contribute in some way, as is traditional in many families. My mother set down her coffee cup with a sharp clink. Traditional is for traditional couples, she said, couples who follow the proper order of things. A chill spread through me. What is that supposed to mean? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. My father leaned forward. It means, Sarah, that your sister has always made choices that align with our family values. She attended the right schools, pursued a respectable career path, and is marrying into a family that will enhance her social standing and security. My mother continued, while you, Sarah, have consistently chosen to do things your own way. You rejected our advice about college. You picked a career in advertising of all things, and now you're planning to marry. She trailed off, glancing at John as if he were a piece of furniture she didn't quite know where to place. A software engineer, John filled in, his voice steady despite the blatant insult. Someone we barely know, my father corrected. Someone from a background that frankly doesn't match our family's social circle. I felt as if I'd been slapped. John is brilliant, kind, hardworking. His parents are educators. What exactly is wrong with his background? My mother dismissively replied, there's nothing wrong with being a school teacher. But Vanessa is making a match that will secure her future. Gregory's family has connections, resources, standing in the community. So this is about money? I asked, incredulous. It's about choices, my father said firmly. And the simple fact is, Sarah, you don't deserve the same help Vanessa does. You haven't earned it. The words hit me like physical blows. You don't deserve. You haven't earned it. What would I have needed to do to deserve your support? I asked, my voice cracking. Marry someone rich? Study what you wanted me to study? Be someone other than who I am? My mother sighed, as if I were being deliberately difficult. This attitude is exactly what we're talking about. Vanessa understands family obligation. She visits regularly, attends functions, maintains the right social connections. What have you done besides pursue your own interests without any regard for how it reflects on us? We've worked hard. I bit back tears. We've paid our own way, built careers we're proud of, found happiness together. I thought that would matter to you. What matters, my father said coldly, is that we are giving Vanessa $100,000 for her wedding because she deserves it. We will attend your wedding as guests, but do not expect financial support. You have made your independent choices. Now live with them. John reached for my hand under the table, his touch grounding me as the room seemed to spin. I think we should go, he said quietly. As we stood, my mother delivered the final blow. Vanessa has always done everything right. I'm sorry to say it, Sarah, but you have been nothing but a disappointment. The drive home was a blur of tears and disbelief. The parents who should have loved me unconditionally had just confirmed what I had suspected for years. In their eyes, I would never measure up. Not because of any moral failing or lack of achievement, but simply because I had chosen to be authentically myself rather than the daughter they had wanted me to be. That night, as John held me while I cried, I made a decision that would alter the course of my life. If my family couldn't accept me as I was, perhaps it was time to redefine what family meant to me. The next morning, I woke up with swollen eyes and an ache in my chest. John was already at the kitchen table, researching budget wedding venues. Maybe we could cut the guest list even further, he suggested. Or push the date back. I shook my head. I can't believe they actually said those things to me. John took my hand. Their loss, he said simply. We're going to build an amazing life together, with or without their blessing. His quiet confidence steadied me, but I still felt the need to talk to the one person who might understand, Vanessa. I called her. Sarah, this is a surprise. Is everything okay? Her tone was pleasant but distracted. Not really, I admitted. I had dinner with Mom and Dad last night to discuss our wedding plans, and it didn't go well. Oh, she said, suddenly uncomfortable. They mentioned you might be asking for money. The casual way she said it stung. I wasn't asking for money, I clarified. I just thought they might want to contribute something to my wedding, like they are for yours. But they made it very clear that I don't deserve their help. A pause. Look, Sarah, I don't want to get in the middle of this, but you have to admit you've always done things your own way. You can't expect the same support when you don't follow the path they laid out. My throat tightened. So you agree with them that I'm undeserving because I made my own choices? Don't be so dramatic, she snapped. It's not about deserving. It's about family expectations. I fulfilled them. You rebelled against them. Actions have consequences. Expectations like what? Marrying someone wealthy? Following a career path I have no interest in. I shot back. Don't be jealous of me because I chose the right path. Vanessa snapped. Gregory and I share values with Mom and Dad. We participate in family traditions. We consider how our choices reflect on the family name. What have you ever done except pursue your own agenda? It was eerily similar to what my mother had said. I realized then that Vanessa wouldn't be my ally. She had too much invested in the family dynamic with her as the golden child, and me as the disappointment. I thought you might understand, I said quietly. Or at least recognize how unfair this is. Life isn't fair, Sarah. Some of us work hard to maintain family harmony while others just do whatever they want and then complain about the consequences. Look, I have to go. Gregory's waiting to look at wedding venues. The call ended, and with it, my last hope of finding understanding within my family. In the weeks that followed, I threw myself into work, staying late, taking on extra projects. John worried, but understood my need to focus on something productive. Meanwhile, Vanessa's wedding planning proceeded full steam ahead. My mother sent group texts with updates about venues, flowers, fittings. Each message was like salt in a wound, but I responded with polite enthusiasm. Then came the formal bridesmaid invitation, 5 pre-wedding events, a specific dress costing nearly $1,000, a contribution to a luxury bachelorette weekend in Miami. The financial burden alone was significant, but it was the emotional toll I couldn't bear. After careful consideration, I called Vanessa to decline the bridesmaid role, offering instead to attend as a regular guest. Her reaction was immediate and furious. "This is so typical of you, Sarah. Always thinking of yourself instead of supporting your family. Everyone is going to ask why my own sister isn't in my wedding party." "You can tell them the truth," I suggested. "That I can't afford the financial commitment right now. This isn't about money. This is about your attitude. You've always been jealous of me, and now you're trying to ruin my special day." No amount of explanation would convince her. The conversation ended with her threatening to uninvite me entirely, though a formal invitation still arrived 2 weeks later. As the wedding date approached, John and I discussed whether to go at all. Part of me wanted to avoid the emotional minefield, but another part felt that not attending would only reinforce their narrative about me being selfish. "We'll go," John decided. "Hold our heads high, be polite, and leave early if needed. We have nothing to be ashamed of." Vanessa's wedding day dawned bright and clear. A perfect June Saturday at a vineyard in Napa Valley. John and I arrived, dressed well, but not ostentatiously. The venue was spectacular. Flowering vines, elegant table settings, a string quartet playing softly. Every detail screamed expense and privilege. I made my way to the bridal suite to offer congratulations. Vanessa was surrounded by bridesmaids in identical lavender gowns. She looked stunning in a custom designer dress that probably cost more than our entire wedding budget. "Sarah," she acknowledged me coolly. "I'm glad you could make it." "You look beautiful," I said sincerely. "Congratulations." She accepted the compliment with a nod. "Mom has seated you and John at table 11, with the cousins from Dad's side." "I hope that's okay." Table 11, I later discovered, was the farthest from the head table, tucked behind a massive floral arrangement. We were seated with distant relatives who seemed confused about who we were. One elderly great-aunt repeatedly asked John if he was the photographer boy. During the reception, my parents made their rounds, stopping at every table. When they reached ours, their greeting was cordial but brief. "Sarah, John, glad you could make it," my father said stiffly, as if we were business acquaintances. "Lovely ceremony," I offered. "Vanessa looks happy." "She deserves it," my mother replied. "She has always made us proud." The implication hung in the air, "unlike you." The real knife twist came during the toasts. My father stood, glass raised, and spoke about the joy of watching his daughter grow into an exemplary woman who had fulfilled every hope they had for her. "Vanessa has never taken a misstep," he said proudly. "Every choice, every decision has been thoughtful and aligned with our family values. And now she has found a partner who shares those values and will help her continue our family legacy of excellence." My mother followed, highlighting Vanessa's adherence to tradition and duty. "Some children follow their own path," she said, her gaze briefly finding me in the crowd, "but Vanessa has always understood the importance of family expectations. This wedding, which we are proud to fully support, is a testament to her character." Later, during the dancing, I overheard my mother talking to a friend. "My younger daughter has never quite lived up to family expectations," she was saying. "Such a shame, but what can you do? They make their choices." It was the final straw. I found John at the bar and whispered that I needed to leave. We slipped out quietly during a group dance number, driving back to our hotel in silence. Back in our room, I broke down completely. "I can't do this anymore," I sobbed. "They'll never see me as good enough. Nothing I accomplish will ever matter because it's not what they wanted for me." John held me, letting me cry it out. "Then maybe it's time to stop trying to earn their approval," he said finally. "Maybe it's time to build a life that makes you proud, regardless of what they think." That night, we made 2 significant decisions. First, we would postpone our wedding plans indefinitely. The idea of a celebration focused on family felt hollow now. Second, and more importantly, I would establish clear boundaries with my parents and sister. No more subjecting myself to their judgment and conditional love. The next morning, I blocked their numbers and social media accounts. I sent a brief email explaining that I needed space and would contact them when I was ready. Then John and I returned home, ready to focus on building our future together without the shadow of family disapproval hanging over us. It was the hardest decision I had ever made, but also the most liberating. Little did I know that this painful break would set us on a path to success beyond anything I could have imagined. The first year after cutting contact was the hardest. Birthdays, holidays, random Tuesday evenings when a childhood memory unexpectedly surfaced, all became moments of quiet grief. I mourned not just the relationships we had, but the one I had always hoped we might someday develop. The silence from their end was deafening. No calls, no emails asking me to reconsider. It only confirmed what part of me had always known. Their love had been conditional, based on my compliance rather than my inherent worth as their daughter. John suggested therapy, and after some reluctance, I agreed. My therapist, Dr. Levine, helped me understand the patterns of emotional neglect that had defined my childhood. What your parents did is called conditional parenting, she explained. Love and approval are given only when the child meets certain expectations. It's damaging because it teaches children that their inherent value is tied to performance or compliance. But why did they treat Vanessa differently? I asked, the question that had haunted me for years. Some parents unconsciously designate roles to their children. The golden child, the scapegoat, she said. It says more about their own needs and insecurities than about either of you. Week by week, I began to untangle my sense of self from my family's expectations. I realized that the qualities they had criticized, my independence, my determination to forge my own path, were actually strengths that had served me well. One evening, as John and I discussed my latest therapy breakthrough, he suggested a shift in focus. I know processing your family stuff is important, he said. But what if we also put energy into building the future we want, not as a reaction to them, but as a positive choice for ourselves? His words resonated deep inside me. For so long, I had defined myself in opposition to my family's expectations. What would it look like to define myself by my own aspirations instead? The next day, I created a vision board for our life together. Not a superficial one with luxury cars, but one focused on meaningful goals, financial independence, work that made a difference, a home that felt safe and welcoming, relationships based on mutual respect and genuine care. John and I both threw ourselves into our careers with renewed focus. I had been at my marketing agency for 3 years, building a reputation for innovative digital campaigns. When a major client specifically requested me for their rebranding project, my boss gave me the lead and a small team to manage. The project was challenging, high-profile, but the results exceeded expectations, earning praise from the client and industry recognition. 6 months later, I was promoted to associate director with a substantial salary increase. John's trajectory was similarly upward. His coding skills and problem-solving abilities caught the attention of senior management, and he was tapped to lead the development of a new software platform. The promotion came with stock options and a salary that nearly doubled his previous earnings. One night, over a celebratory dinner for his promotion, John raised an idea that would change everything. What? If we started our own company, he asked. Combining my technical skills with your marketing expertise, there's a gap in the market for agencies that truly understand both sides. The idea took root immediately. We spent evenings and weekends developing a business plan. 6 months later, Digital Nexus was born, operating initially from our apartment living room. The early days were challenging. We invested most of our savings, worked 16-hour days, John on technical development, me on client acquisition and strategy. Our first client, a small local business owner I met at a networking event, took a chance on us despite our limited portfolio. Impressed by our personalized approach, the project was a success, leading to referrals and a gradually growing client base. For months in, we landed our first major client, a regional restaurant chain needing a complete digital overhaul. The project was complex, high stakes, requiring us to hire 2 freelancers. The pressure was immense. The night before the client presentation, we worked until 3 a.m., fine-tuning everything. I remember looking across our makeshift home office at John, his face illuminated by the screen, and feeling a surge of gratitude. While my biological family had dismissed our potential, we were building something meaningful together. The presentation was a triumph. The client not only approved our work but referred us to several business partners. Within 6 months, we had enough consistent business to lease a small office space and hire 3 full-time employees. By the end of our first year, Digital Nexus had established a reputation for innovative solutions that delivered measurable results. Our client roster included several recognizable brands, and we had expanded to a team of 12. Through it all, my family remained absent. Occasionally, a generic birthday card from my mother or a holiday mass email that included me among dozens of recipients. My father never reached out at all. Vanessa sent a stiff announcement of her first pregnancy, addressed to Sarah and guest, rather than including John by name. These small reminders still hurt, but the pain was dulled by the joy and fulfillment I found in the life John and I were creating. We had formed close friendships, found mentors, and built a chosen family that celebrated our successes and stood by us through challenges. On our 3rd anniversary, John suggested we revisit the idea of getting married. Not a big production, he clarified, just something intimate with the people who have actually been there for us. 2 months later, we exchanged vows in the garden of our favorite restaurant, surrounded by 20 friends who had become family. My colleague Sophia stood as my maid of honor, John's best friend from college as his best man. No elaborate floral arrangements, no designer attire, just sincere vows and genuine celebration. The total cost came to just under $8,000, a fraction of what Vanessa's wedding had cost. But as we danced under string lights with people who truly cared about us, I knew our celebration held something money couldn't buy: authenticity. I didn't invite my parents or Vanessa. The decision brought some sadness, but also a sense of protection for this new chapter of our lives. Our wedding would not be tainted by their judgment or conditional approval. The months following our wedding brought unexpected developments for Digital Nexus. A case study we published about one of our campaigns went viral in industry circles, bringing attention from larger potential clients and investors. Suddenly, we were fielding calls from venture capitalists interested in funding our expansion. After careful consideration, we accepted an investment that allowed us to scale significantly while maintaining control. We moved to larger offices, expanded our team to 30 people, and developed proprietary software. 18 months after accepting the investment, we were approached by a major tech company interested in acquiring Digital Nexus. The initial offer was substantial, but John and I were hesitant to give up the company we had built from scratch. After several rounds of negotiation, we reached an agreement that exceeded our wildest expectations: $20 million, with both of us retained as consultants for 2 years with considerable compensation packages. The night the papers were signed, John and I sat on the floor of our apartment, a bottle of champagne between us, slightly dazed. "We did it," John whispered, his voice catching. "We really did it." I thought about the journey from that painful dinner with my parents to this moment of extraordinary success. Every dismissal, every judgment, every time they had told me I wasn't good enough had ultimately pushed me to prove, not to them, but to myself, that I could create a life of meaning and achievement on my own terms. "I want to buy a house," I said suddenly, "a real home somewhere we can put down roots." John smiled. "I was thinking the same thing. Let's start looking tomorrow." Little did I know that our new home would become the catalyst for an unexpected confrontation with the past I had worked so hard to leave behind. With our newfound financial security, John and I began searching for our dream home. We weren't interested in ostentatious displays of wealth, but we wanted space, privacy, and a property that reflected our aesthetic. After 3 months, we found it: a stunning contemporary home in an exclusive neighborhood, set on 2 acres with mature trees and a view of the city skyline. It was architectural perfection, for 1,000 square feet of clean lines and thoughtful design. Floor-to-ceiling windows filled the space with natural light, high ceilings creating an atmosphere of calm. The gourmet kitchen, The luxury spa-like bathroom, the infinity pool merging with the horizon. It was everything. It was, in every way, the antithesis of the traditional colonial home my parents had always valued. The asking price was just under $2 million, a sum that would have seemed impossible just a few years earlier. Now, we could purchase it outright, without a mortgage. The day we signed the closing documents, I felt a sense of achievement that went beyond material acquisition. This home represented freedom, the tangible result of following my own path, despite the disapproval of those who should have supported me most. We took our time furnishing it, creating a space that felt both luxurious and welcoming. It became not just a showcase, but a true home, one where we hosted dinner parties for friends and colleagues, celebrated holidays, and built our life together. Meanwhile, we launched a new business venture, a software platform for small businesses. With the experience and connections from Digital Nexus, this new company grew even faster than our first. Within 18 months, we had offices in 3 cities and a valuation that exceeded our previous success. As our professional achievements accumulated, I occasionally heard snippets of information about my family through mutual acquaintances. My father had been named in a medical malpractice lawsuit, damaging his reputation. Though the case settled, the financial impact was significant, forcing my parents to downsize their home and adjust their lifestyle. Vanessa's marriage to Gregory had also hit rough waters. His family's wealth, which had been a primary factor in my parents' approval, turned out to be mostly illusion, maintained through excessive debt. When his father's company faced bankruptcy, Gregory lost his nominal job and struggled to find employment without any actual skills. I learned Vanessa and Gregory had been forced to sell their recently purchased home. They moved to a modest townhouse in a middle-class suburb, the kind of place my parents had always subtly disparaged. Vanessa had taken a job in corporate marketing, finally putting her business degree to practical use out of necessity rather than choice. These developments didn't bring me joy. Despite everything, I didn't wish hardship on my family. But there was a certain poetic justice in the collapse of the very things they had valued above genuine connection and unconditional love. One bright spring Saturday, John and I were enjoying breakfast on our patio, discussing plans for a charity gala we were hosting. My phone buzzed with a text from Sophia, one of the few people who knew my family history. Just saw your sister driving slowly past your house. Thought you should know. A chill despite the warm sun. Sophia lived 3 houses down and had met Vanessa once at our wedding. The fact that she recognized her was unsettling, but the idea of Vanessa essentially spying on our home was deeply disturbing. Are you sure it was her? I texted back. Positive. She stopped across the street for several minutes just staring at your house. I was walking the dog and made eye contact. She drove away immediately. I showed the message to John. That's strange. Do you think she was just curious, or is something else going on? I have no idea, I admitted. We haven't spoken in over 3 years. Later that afternoon, my question was answered. My phone rang, a number I hadn't seen in years. My mother. My finger hovered over the decline button, but curiosity won out. Hello. I answered cautiously. Sarah, is that really you? My mother's voice sounded older, more tentative than I remembered. Yes, it is me. Is everything okay? Despite everything, my first thought was concern that someone might be ill. Yes, well, as okay as can be expected. She paused. I think we're overdue for a conversation, don't you? It's been too long. The casual way she referred to our estrangement, as if it had been a mutual decision rather than a response to their rejection, made me grip the phone tighter. Why are you calling now after all this time? I asked directly. Another pause. We miss you, Sarah. Family shouldn't be apart like this. And well, Vanessa mentioned she happened to drive by your new home today. It looks quite impressive. There it was. Not concern for my well-being or regret for past treatment, but awareness of my financial success. She didn't happen to drive by, I corrected. We live in a gated community, 40 minutes from her neighborhood. She would have had to deliberately seek out our address. Well, regardless, my mother continued, glossing over the fact, it made us realize how long it's been since we've seen you. We'd love to visit your new home, reconnect, put the past behind us. I closed my eyes, processing this sudden reappearance. 3 years of silence, then Vanessa drives by my house, and suddenly they want to reconcile. I need to think about this, I said finally. I'll call you back. John listened as I recounted the conversation, his expression growing more concerned. It sounds like they found out you're successful and now they want to be part of it, he observed. The timing is suspicious, to say the least. I nodded, the same thought having crossed my mind. But part of me wonders if I should at least hear them out. Not for their sake, but for my own closure. After much discussion, John and I agreed to a limited meeting. I would invite them to our home, establish clear boundaries, and see if genuine reconciliation was possible, or if their motives were as self-serving as we suspected. I called my mother back the next day. You can come for coffee this Saturday at 2, I said, keeping my tone neutral. Just to talk. Wonderful, she exclaimed. Your father and I will be there. Should we bring anything? Just yourselves, I replied. And Mom, Vanessa is welcome to come too. There was a moment of silence. Oh, I'll let her know. I'm sure she'd love to see you. After ending the call, I felt a mixture of anxiety and resolution. Whatever happened on Saturday, I would face my family from a position of strength, secure in the life and identity I had built for myself. They no longer held power over my sense of worth or belonging. Saturday arrived with clear skies and mild temperatures. John and I prepared a simple spread of coffee, tea, and pastries from a local bakery, setting everything on the patio overlooking the pool and garden. As the clock approached 2, our gate security called to announce visitors. Minutes later, a car I didn't recognize pulled into our circular driveway. My father emerged first, followed by my mother, both looking older than I remembered. Last to exit was Vanessa, her expression difficult to read from a distance. John squeezed my hand once before we moved to open the front door. The moment had arrived to face the family that had once told me I didn't deserve their support. Only now, I was standing in a $2 million home that I had earned entirely without them. Opening the door to my family after 3 years of separation felt surreal. My father had more gray in his hair, deep lines around his eyes that hadn't been there before. My mother looked thinner, her carefully maintained appearance showing signs of strain. Vanessa, holding a designer purse that looked new but was probably from a previous season, had the pinched expression of someone trying very hard to appear unbothered. Sarah, my mother said, stepping forward with arms outstretched, as if the years of silence had been a minor misunderstanding. You look wonderful. I accepted her brief hug without returning it, then nodded to my father and sister. Please come in. Their eyes darted around our entryway, taking in the soaring ceiling, the modern chandelier, the original artwork. My mother made a small noise of appreciation. My father straightened his shoulders as if preparing for a business meeting. Your home is lovely, my mother offered, as I led them through to the main living area. So contemporary. Thank you, John replied, stepping forward to stand beside me. We designed some elements ourselves. My father extended his hand stiffly. John, you're looking well. As are you, sir, John replied with professional courtesy. I gestured toward the patio doors. I thought we could sit outside. The weather's perfect. They followed us out to the patio, where the spectacular view provided a natural conversation piece, and the open space prevented any feeling of being trapped. As we settled around the table, an awkward silence fell. I made no move to break it, curious to see how they would begin a conversation they had requested after years of absence. Well, my mother finally said, reaching for a pastry. This is nice. Family together again. Is it? I asked, my voice calm but direct. Family together again after 3 years without a word. My father cleared his throat. Now, Sarah, there's no need for hostility. We're here to reconnect. I'm not being hostile, I clarified, just realistic. You wanted this meeting, so I assume you have something specific to discuss. My mother shot a glance at my father. We've missed you, she said, her voice taking on the placating tone she'd always used. We think it's time to put the past behind us. What past are we referring to exactly? I asked. The part where you told me I didn't deserve your support? Or the part where you called me a disappointment for making my own choices? Vanessa, who had been silent, shifted uncomfortably. We all say things we regret in the heat of the moment, she offered. It wasn't the heat of the moment, I corrected her. It was a consistent pattern throughout my life, and it wasn't just words, it was actions, or rather, the lack of them. My father set down his coffee cup with deliberate precision. We may have been too harsh. The closest thing to an apology I'd ever heard from him. But you've clearly done well for yourself. This property, your business success, it's all very impressive. There it was. Acknowledgement of my financial achievement rather than any recognition of the pain they had caused. I noticed he spoke of my business success rather than asking any specific questions about what John and I actually did or how we had built our companies. We have worked hard, John said, his tone neutral, built 2 successful companies from the ground up. Yes, we heard about your software venture, my mother said, brightening. Patricia Wilson, his son works in tech, and he mentioned your name at their dinner party last month. We were so proud to say you were our daughter. The irony was almost painful. After years of expressing disappointment in my career choices, they were now claiming pride in my success, but only after it had been validated by their social circle. Funny, I said, unable to keep the edge from my voice. I don't recall you being proud when I first launched the business. In fact, I don't recall hearing from you at all. My father waved his hand dismissively. Water under the bridge. The important thing is family coming together now. Why now? John asked directly. Why, after 3 years of no contact? The question hung in the air, uncomfortable but necessary. My mother glanced at Vanessa, then back at me. Well, family shouldn't stay estranged, she said vaguely. And when we realized how well you were doing, it seemed silly to maintain old grievances. When you realized how well we were doing, I repeated, after Vanessa drove by our house? Vanessa flushed slightly. It wasn't like that. I heard through a colleague that you had moved to this neighborhood. I was just curious. Curious enough to look up our address and drive 40 minutes to see it, but not curious enough to call or email in 3 years. The conversation stalled again, the pastries on the table untouched. My father, always the pragmatist, decided to change tactics. The truth is, Sarah, he said, leaning forward. Our family has hit a rough patch. I don't know if you heard about the lawsuit. I heard, I said simply. He nodded, relieved to skip the explanation. The settlement was substantial. Insurance covered some but not all. We've had to make adjustments. Dad had to take early retirement, Vanessa added, and sell the house. I'm sorry to hear that, I said, and meant it. Despite everything, I took no pleasure in their difficulties. And Gregory's family situation has been challenging as well, my mother continued, glancing sympathetically at Vanessa. The Harringtons aren't quite as established as we had believed. Vanessa looked down at her hands. Gregory has been between positions for almost a year now. And with the baby coming. You're pregnant? I asked, genuinely surprised. She nodded, a flicker of real emotion crossing her face. 5 months. For a brief moment, I felt a pang of connection to this unborn niece I might never know. But the feeling was quickly overshadowed by the realization that this entire reunion had an ulterior motive, now becoming increasingly clear. Congratulations, I said sincerely. Children are a blessing. My mother seized on this moment of warmth. There indeed, which is why family is so important. Supporting each other through challenges, celebrating successes together. My father, less patient, cut to the chase. The medical community can be unforgiving after a malpractice case, regardless of the circumstances. I'm consulting now, but rebuilding my reputation requires connections, resources. And Gregory needs investors for his new business venture, Vanessa added. Something in tech, like what you and John do. He has excellent ideas, just needs the right backing. And of course, my mother concluded, families should support each other, the way we supported Vanessa's wedding, for instance. It's just what families do. The audacity was breathtaking. After telling me I didn't deserve their support, after years of silence, they were now sitting in my home, expecting financial assistance. Not because they acknowledged their past behavior or showed genuine remorse, but simply because we shared DNA, and I now had resources they wanted access to. I looked at John, finding in his eyes the steadiness that had been my true support through everything. Then I turned back to my family, feeling strangely calm and clear. I think I understand now why you wanted to reconnect, I said, my voice even. And I appreciate your honesty, even if it took seeing my home to bring it about. My mother smiled, seemingly relieved that the subtext was now text. So, you will help? We're thinking a loan to start, perhaps $200,000 to help your father reestablish his consulting practice, and maybe the same for Gregory's venture. Family investing in family. The casual way she named these substantial sums, as if they were insignificant tokens rather than more money than they had ever offered me, confirmed everything I needed to know about this reunion. I stood up slowly, straightening to my full height. I need to be honest with you too, I said. I didn't invite you here today to negotiate financial arrangements. I invited you because part of me wondered if genuine reconciliation was possible. My father frowned, sensing the shift in direction. Sarah, don't be dramatic. We're simply discussing practical family matters. No, I corrected him. You're asking for financial help from the daughter you explicitly told was undeserving of your support. The daughter whose life choices you criticized and whose wedding you refused to contribute to because, and I quote, I hadn't earned it. Vanessa interjected, that was different. We didn't know you would become so successful. Her words hung in the air, the naked truth finally exposed. Their treatment of me had been based on a calculation of what I could provide them, not on unconditional love or belief in my worth. Thank you for that clarification, Vanessa, I said quietly. It tells me everything I need to know. I turned to my parents, feeling not anger, but a profound sadness for what might have been. I think you should leave now. All of you. My mother's gasp was theatrical. You're throwing us out? Your own family? I am asking you to leave my home, I corrected. The home I built without your support or approval. The home that apparently only made me worthy of your attention once you saw it. My father stood abruptly. This is outrageous. After all we've done for you. What exactly have you done for me? I asked, genuinely curious about his perception. He sputtered, unable to provide specific examples. We raised you, educated you. You provided the legal minimum required of parents, I countered, and made it clear at every turn that I was less valuable than my sister because I didn't conform to your expectations. So, you won't help us? Vanessa asked, her voice small. Not even for your niece? The appeal to family obligation was ironic, coming from someone who had stood by silently while our parents dismissed my worth. Still, I felt a twinge of compassion for the unborn child who would enter this complicated dynamic. I will not be financially supporting Dad's career rehabilitation or Gregory's business venture, I said firmly. But I would be willing to set up an education fund for your daughter, provided it's in her name only and cannot be accessed for any other purpose. My offer, meant as a genuine olive branch to my future niece, was met with indignation rather than gratitude. How dare you dictate terms to us? My mother snapped, as if we can't be trusted with our own granddaughter's future. John, who had remained admirably restrained, finally spoke. I think Sarah has been more than generous given the circumstances. Now, I suggest you respect her request to leave. My father glared at him. This conversation is between family members. John is my family, I said firmly. The family I chose, who has supported me unconditionally, something the three of you might want to reflect on. There was a moment of tense silence before my father turned and headed toward the door. My mother followed, pausing only to say, you will regret this selfishness, Sarah. When we are gone, you will wish you had been a better daughter. Vanessa lingered briefly, something unreadable in her expression. For a moment, I thought she might say something meaningful. Instead, she simply said, the offer for the baby fund, does it still stand? It does, I confirmed. Contact my lawyer and we'll arrange it. She nodded once, then followed our parents. I watched through the window as they drove away, their car growing smaller until it disappeared beyond our gates. Only then did I allow myself to sink into a chair, emotionally exhausted. Are you okay? John asked, sitting beside me. I don't know, I admitted. But I think I will be. What I couldn't have anticipated was the flood of emails, texts, and voicemails that would begin arriving within hours of their departure. My father demanding reconsideration. My mother alternating between guilt trips and thinly veiled threats about being written out of their will. Vanessa pleading for me to understand their difficult situation. Each message confirmed that I had made the right decision in maintaining boundaries. They still saw me not as a person deserving of respect and genuine connection, but as a resource to be accessed when convenient. That night, I decided to send one final message, an email addressed to all three of them, expressing exactly what I had learned from our years apart and our brief reunion. It would be my last communication for a very long time. The days following my family's visit were emotionally turbulent. I fluctuated between certainty that I had done the right thing and waves of grief for the relationships that might have been. John gave me space when I needed it and comfort when I asked, never once suggesting that I had made the wrong choice. "You set a boundary," he reminded me. "That's not rejection. It's self-protection." A week after their visit, I sat at my desk overlooking our garden and composed the email I had been drafting in my mind for days. It would be my final word on the matter, a closing statement rather than an invitation for further dialogue. "Dear Mom, Dad, and Vanessa, I have given our recent reunion considerable thought. I want to be clear that this email is not written in anger, but from a place of clarity that has taken years to achieve. I do not hate any of you. I do not wish you ill. In fact, I hope you find your way through your current challenges. However, I cannot provide the financial assistance you are seeking. This is not about punishing you for past behavior or withholding out of spite. It is about recognizing that our relationship has never been based on mutual respect or unconditional love, but rather on my compliance with your expectations. For Vanessa, I have arranged an education trust for your daughter as promised. My lawyer will contact you with the details. This is not because I feel obligated, but because I want your child to have options, regardless of our complicated history. Beyond this, I ask that you respect my decision to maintain distance. The 3 years we spent apart were painful, but also healing. I built a life that brings me joy and fulfillment, surrounded by people who value me for who I am, not what I can provide or how I reflect on them. If someday you are interested in a relationship based on genuine connection rather than financial need, I might be open to that conversation. Until then, I wish you well, but need to protect the peace and happiness I have worked so hard to create. Sarah. I hit send before I could second-guess myself, then closed my laptop. There was a finality to the action that brought both sadness and relief. I had said what needed to be said, without cruelty, but also without compromise. The response was predictable. My father sent a terse message calling me selfish and ungrateful. My mother wrote a lengthy email detailing all she had sacrificed for me, concluding that I was breaking her heart. Vanessa sent a text thanking me for the trust fund, but suggesting I was being unnecessarily harsh with our aging parents. I didn't respond to any of them. Instead, John and I focused on moving forward with our lives and the positive impact we could make with our success. We established a scholarship foundation for first-generation college students, particularly those pursuing entrepreneurship without family financial support. The program provided not just tuition assistance, but mentorship and networking opportunities, the kind of support I had wished for during my own college years. We also created an incubator program for women-owned startups, offering seed funding and guidance to promising entrepreneurs. Watching these businesses grow from concept to thriving enterprises brought a satisfaction deeper than any luxury purchase could provide. In our personal life, we continued to nurture the community of friends who had become our chosen family. We hosted regular dinners, celebrated milestones together, and supported each other through challenges. These relationships, based on mutual respect and genuine care, showed me what healthy connections truly looked like. 6 months after the confrontation with my family, I discovered I was pregnant. The joy and trepidation of impending parenthood sparked deep reflection on the kind of mother I wanted to be, the family culture I hoped to create. "I want our child to know they are loved unconditionally," I told John one night as we discussed nursery colors. "That their worth is not tied to achievements or compliance. They will know," John assured me, "because we both understand how important that is." As my pregnancy progressed, I thought often about the patterns of family dysfunction and how easily they could be perpetuated without conscious effort. I read books on emotionally healthy parenting, joined support groups, and even resumed therapy to process my own childhood experiences before bringing a new life into the world. One evening, while sorting through old photographs for a baby memory book, I found a picture of myself at about 7 years old, standing proudly beside a science fair project. My smile was wide, my posture confident. I remembered that day clearly, the excitement of presenting my work, the blue ribbon I had won. What I also remembered, with adult perspective, was my parents' lukewarm response. "Second place is nice," my father had said. "Vanessa won first last year, of course." Looking at that hopeful child, I made a silent promise to my unborn baby. "You will never be compared. Your achievements will be celebrated for their own merit, not measured against someone else's standard. Your worth will never be in question." 2 months later, our daughter Emma was born, a healthy 7-pound baby with John's eyes and my determined chin. Holding her in the hospital, I felt a love so pure and unconditional that it highlighted, by contrast, the conditional nature of the love I had received growing up. My parents and Vanessa sent obligatory congratulations cards and a gift for the baby. I sent polite thank you notes, but did not extend invitations to visit. The boundaries I had established remained important, perhaps even more so now that I was responsible for protecting not just myself, but my child. As Emma grew from infant to toddler, I watched with wonder the person she was becoming, delighting in her uniqueness rather than trying to shape her into a predetermined mold. When she showed interest in anything, whether finger painting or building blocks, we encouraged her curiosity without judgment or expectation. On her 3rd birthday, as we celebrated with the close friends who had become her honorary aunts and uncles, I reflected on the journey that had brought me to this point. From the painful dinner where my parents had declared me undeserving, to the creation of thriving businesses, to this moment of simple joy watching my daughter blow out candles, supported by people who loved us authentically. The greatest success in my life was not the $2 million home or the profitable businesses, though those achievements were significant. It was building a life aligned with my own values rather than someone else's expectations. It was creating a family culture based on acceptance and support rather than conditional approval and comparison. Sometimes, the greatest gift we can receive is the rejection that forces us to find our own path. My parents telling me I didn't deserve their help pushed me to prove, not to them, but to myself, that I could create something meaningful on my own terms. Their rejection, painful as it was, ultimately freed me from the constraints of their narrow definition of success. The family we are born into shapes us, but it does not define us. Sometimes we must create our own definition of family, gathering people who see our worth and support our authentic selves. And sometimes, the most loving thing we can do for ourselves is to maintain boundaries with those who cannot, or will not, offer the respect and acceptance we deserve. I don't know if my relationship with my parents and sister will ever truly heal. What I do know is that I am no longer waiting for their approval or validation. I am too busy living a life that makes me proud, raising a daughter who will never question her inherent value, and contributing to a world that recognizes worth beyond material success or social standing. I didn't build this life to prove anything to my family, but I have come to understand that sometimes the cruelest rejections open the most beautiful doors. You never know how strong you are until being strong is your only option.